What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are breaking down Michigan State ahead of the 2025 season. Before we get started, if you like this content or want to support, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, leave a comment. You'd be shocked how much something small like that actually helps drive the video and gets this in front of other people as we try to grow from being a very small channel, which we are currently. So thank you if you've done that. It does mean a lot. We're going to be talking college football previews. We'll do betting previews, win totals, futures, and then in season, all the game breakdowns and recaps you can imagine. But Michigan State is on deck. It has been a bit of an experience for them recently. Here are the efficiency metrics from last year. In their first season under Jonathan Smith, which ends up in a 5-7 season, which is better than some of the recent play we've seen from Michigan State. It's been a tumultuous ride. You know, they have the Mark D'Antonio years where they only missed a bowl game once. He is the winningest coach all time for Michigan State. He decides to retire. They move to Mel Tucker, made one bowl game during that span. The Mel Tucker era ended in scandal. And then they moved to Jonathan Smith, who had a lot of success previously with Oregon State before taking the job here. So with Michigan State, a 5-7 season to start off, which is pretty good. Schedule was relatively easy. They really only knocked off Iowa as a marquee win. They had single-digit losses to Boston College and Michigan, which is a feather in their cap, but they still got blown out really by every good team they faced. Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Illinois, Rutgers. So there's still a lot of room for growth. They're in year 2 now. Jonathan Smith brought Oregon State, which is a team that is typically pretty difficult to bring to success. He brought them to success. Michigan State is a storied program with a lot more resources. Offensive coordinator, it's Brian Lindgren's second year. The offense was 102nd last year, which certainly needs improvement. They did put together a good run game. They were 32nd there on the back of Nate Carter and K'Ron Lynch-Adams, despite a poor offensive line. And they had good receiving talent. That's largely just a Nick Marsh stat. More on all of those players in depth in a second. Defensive coordinator, Joe Rossi returns. He's previously the Minnesota DC. They were 100th in defense. This unit was injury riddled. It still needs improvement. But again, it's year 1 under a new system. It's kind of, what do you expect at this point? You know, it's going to take more than 1 year to get everything together. Look at all the recent coaching changes. Matt Rule. You can look at Auburn with, going from Brian Harsin to Hugh Freeze. It just happens. It's the current state of college football. Rarely do you walk into like an Alabama in your first year. Let's take a look at recruiting and talent acquisition. 2 years under Jonathan Smith, recruiting classes haven't been great. They're in the bottom 3 of the Big Ten this year, 57th, which isn't ideal. Last year when they turned over Stavs, they finished 13th in the Big Ten, 42nd overall. That's kind of to be expected. But Michigan State has a history of recruiting fairly well in this conference. The final year under Mel Tucker, they were 24th in recruiting in 2023. That was 4th in the Big Ten, also before they had USC and Oregon, so that wouldn't have been as high if you included those teams. But still, there's a pedigree for better recruiting here, so they're getting things together. I'm optimistic it will be better in the future. The one thing you can say about these two classes, recruiting aside, they were 12th in the transfer portal last year. They're 28th this year. They have a good amount of talent coming in via the portal, not just via recruiting, which is a feather in their cap. They still have a lot of talent. Retention also looks pretty good. When you turn over staffs from 2023, it's going to be hard to keep guys. So the 31% kind of just is what it is. But last year's class up at 82%. Those are good retention numbers for the Spartans. Let's dive into the roster for this season. Behind the glass we go. This is our data usage tool. Basically, just trying to project everyone in the 2 deep who might play. We have all the transfers in yellow. We have the year in school right next to that, followed by their snaps the last 2 years, what recruit they were in terms of a star rating, and then a value score, which looks first and foremost at your recruitment. Then the more snaps you play, the less it looks at recruiting, and the more it looks at your on-field play, trying to give you just an overall score. Think like a 0 to 100 scale where most players are going to be around 50 on average. The players that are well above that, clearly super talented, very, very few 90s given out, and not as many players below that either, but we'll dive into it all. Quarterback, they return Aiden Childs. He was with Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. He comes over via transfer with the coaching change. Started for the first time last year, was up and down, 59.5% completion percentage, 2,415 yards. That was 7.5 yards per attempt. He had 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 13 big time throws, 20 turnover worthy plays. That was one of the worst marks in the country. He's a gunslinger and he's going to put the ball in harm's way. It's definitely something he needs to correct or at least improve on. He is 6'3", 217 pounds, good mobility, 225 yards on the ground. That's 2.3 yards per carry. And that was despite taking 27 sacks, which, as you all know, sacks count as negative rushing yards. So still putting up 225 yards on 27 sacks is pretty nice. There is a little bit of nuance to this, however. Childs was under duress a lot for two reasons. One, the offensive line was not great. You just saw the efficiency metrics. That was a bottom 100 unit in the country. He didn't do them a lot of favors either, though, holding on the ball for 3.1 seconds on average. So he faced pressure on 38% of his dropbacks. Now, that was only converted 19% of the time, pressure to sack ratio. That speaks to his ability to navigate in the pocket, scramble. The problem is he took sacks a decent amount. 27 is not great. It's about 2.5 per game. And then the turnover-worthy plays, when he was under duress, if the ball wasn't ending up on the ground because of a sack, a lot of times it was ending up in the hands of defenders or at least in the vicinity. Again, 11 interceptions, 20 turnover-worthy plays. This is a big focus for Michigan State this year. Childs has all the talent in the world. And again, he was a first-year starter. Typically, these things improve. It is just the only concern in his game right now. Can we cut down the turnover-worthy plays? Can we take a few less sacks and maybe get the ball out faster? I think with a better offensive line, that should be something that improves year 1 to year 2 as a full-time starter for the former 4-star. Behind him, you're looking at a pair of 3-star redshirt freshmen, Alessio Milivojevic. I don't know how to say his name. Alessio Milivojevic, I think is something like that. Excuse me on that. Tough last name for the redshirt freshman. No pronunciation guide on Michigan State's roster, please. And thank you in the future. They also have Rylan Jesse. Milivojevic is the 827th ranked prospect in the 2024 class, 6'2", 216. He has some rushing ability, but this is not the strongest Big Ten quarterback room, largely because it sort of lacks proven depth and high-profile recruits. Childs is going to have to stay healthy for them to reach their ceiling here. At running back, they lose K'Ron Lynch-Adams. They lose Nate Carter. They do bring in a transfer in Elijah Tolliver. He comes in from Sacramento State. Michigan State has a type at running back. They like their bigger backs, usually above 6 feet, above 200 pounds. Tolliver fits that bill, 6'1", 204. The concern I have with him is he only had 66 carries through his first 3 years in the FCS, very low level of competition. Broke out last year, 924 yards on 182 carries. That's 5.1 yards per carry. Also caught the ball 38 times. But his efficiency metrics also were below average in the FCS, 2.81 yards after contact per attempt. A good number for that is 3, so he was below average there. 33 missed tackles. I'm a little concerned because this is a lower level of competition and he still wasn't hitting the thresholds we look for. So this is a battle. I think he loses it, and there are other options. It's not that we need Tolliver to break out. It's just a lot of people are anointing him the next chosen one at Michigan State at the running back position behind the likes of Kenneth Walker and whatnot. But I honestly think it's more likely that sophomores Mekhi Frazier or Brandon Tulis take over this. Both of them played a little bit last year, combined 30 snaps. Frazier's 5'10", but 214. Tulis is 6'1", 215. Both of them competing for this role. Just haven't seen as much of them as we have Tolliver, who's largely been riding pine for 4 years. They also have a 3-star freshman, Jace Clarizio. He could play a role in this rotation. It's just wide open after they lost their top 2 rushers. So we'll see how this plays out. This is a battle that will come down to the summer and the fall camp. But I think the 2 most likely are Mekhi Frazier, Tulis. Tolliver likely plays a role. And that's where the running back room stands, largely unproven, but talented. Wide receiver, they do lose Montori Foster, Isaiah Johnson, Jerron Glover, as well as a few depth wide receivers. They return Nick Marsh. That's what matters. He's their 4-star sophomore, 6'3", 209, plays on the boundary. 93% of his snaps came out there. Caught 41 balls for 649 yards, a very strong 2.11 yards per route. He's an awesome place to start. You're locked in wide receiver 1. Behind him, they add Omari Kelly from Middle Tennessee. Krishan McCray from Kent State, Evan Boyd from Central Michigan, and Rodney Bullard Jr. from Valdosta State. Kelly, the Middle Tennessee transfer, originally was recruited at Auburn. He's a 4-star. 6 feet, 180 pounds, caught 53 balls for 864 yards with Middle Tennessee last year. Another perimeter receiver, 76% of his snaps came out there. Yards per route checks out 2.57, very good at that level of competition. McCray is a much smaller receiver, 5'10", 165. He caught 80 balls for over 1,300 yards and 13 scores combined the last 2 seasons. He was a perimeter receiver in the MAC. 87% of the time he was playing out there. Yards per route checks out at 2.42. But because of his size, 165 pounds and 5'10", he's probably looking more like a slot receiver in this offense. Just size doesn't make a lot of sense to play on the perimeter in the Big Ten, especially when you have options to do so. Boyd, the Central Michigan transfer, got hurt last year. Before injury, he caught 22 passes for 306 yards in 8 games. Another perimeter receiver, 85% of the time he was out there with 1.8 yards per route. Makes sense. He's 6'3", 210. And finally, Bullard comes from Valdosta. He was all conference. Played in the D2 National Championship. He's 6 feet, 180 pounds, over 1,000 yards last year. Probably more of a depth piece, but we'll see. Outside of that, Michigan State has a few other players at least worth mentioning. Alante Brown's a former 4-star. He got hurt last year, but played a little bit with Nebraska before he came over to East Lansing. Charles Taplin, Braylon Collier, Bryson Williams are the other players to mention. Michigan's a little light at scholarship receivers. Those 3 are freshmen, and they'll probably have to play a fair amount. Taplin's the only one really making any noise in the spring, and there's a chance Bryson Williams moves positions. It's not the deepest position, just literally the scholarship numbers are down at wide receiver compared to some other teams. But up top, it is very good, led by Nick Marsh. And then your crop of transfers should be able to fill out the receiver room. This is a position that had injuries last year too. So one main theme with Michigan State across positions is they should be better if they sustain health alone because of how hurt they were last year. And that's how you end up outside the top 100 in so many efficiency metrics. Just with better health luck, they're going to be better. But they also got more talented at a lot of spots, and wide receiver is certainly one of them. Tight end, they returned Jack Velling, the former Oregon State transfer. He's 6'5", 224, caught 36 passes for 411 yards last year. That's now 2 straight seasons over 400 yards. He's not the best blocker, but honestly, it doesn't matter a ton. He plays a lot in the slot. 42% of his snaps, he was lined up in the slot from that alignment, not playing inline as much as other tight ends. And this is a position that also had injury. Michael Masunis is back after he got hurt 4 games in. Michigan State will try to play with 12 personnel as long as they can get better health. Last year, they were sort of forced out of it. Masunis is 6'5", 258. Good blocking numbers, 4 catches in those 4 games. They also have former 4-star Brennan Parachek back. 310 snaps for him last year. He's 6'5", 249. Not a great blocker either, but we're talking about a young 4-star. Now he enters another season, should grow. He caught 8 passes as well. So tight end should be a position of strength, highlighted by Velling at the top, who brings a dynamic receiving element to the group. Offensive line, they basically lose everybody, including their 2 best blockers, Luke Newman, Tanner Miller. However, a lot of players had snaps last year. Some of them are returning from injury. So you lose almost everyone on the offensive line. It's sort of red flags. They fly up. But the group should be a little better than a typical offensive line losing all the starters, basically. Let's start at left tackle. Stanton Ramil returns after 613 snaps. He's one of the lone players with a lot of starting experience. Former 4-star. He's a redshirt sophomore now. Wasn't the greatest in his first season starting, allowed 29 QB pressures, but you can make some excuses, and there's merit to those. He's been injured a lot. Basically lost the entire offseason last year. So you have a 4-star, now a redshirt sophomore, playing as a redshirt freshman and starting without a lot of development time. You're throwing a kid to the fire who's probably not ready. Now you have another year, and he's practicing this offseason. So this should be a step forward for him. Right tackle, Ashton Lepo. He's back after he played a decent amount last year, former 3-star. He struggled even more than Ramil. 29 QB pressures allowed, a little bit worse as a run blocker. So those are your 2 favorites. I think there's going to be competition. Former 4-star Reston Young is there. He's a redshirt freshman now, so he's been with the program for a year. They bring in Connor Moore from Montana State. And on those 2 guys, Young, Only played 19 snaps, but his recruiting pedigree sort of just speaks for itself. Not many 4-stars on the entire roster. And Moore at Montana State was an FCS All-American. Now has started 2 years. This will be his third. Only 11 QB pressures, elite run blocking. The only concern with him is the jump from FCS to Big Ten. But overall, as long as they stay healthy, no way they can really be worse. Speaking of which, guard. 3-star Christian Phillips is back. He was named the starter at right guard last year, suffered a season-ending injury in week 1, and he played awesome against FAU too, didn't allow a single pressure. Now, 97 snaps to his name. It looks like he's not very experienced, but remember, this guy already won a starting job last year before he got hurt. He should play one of the guard spots. The other guard spot has been a battle between Luka Vincic from Oregon State and Caleb Carter from Western Carolina. Vincic played both guard and center for Oregon State last year, 315 snaps. Pretty good as a run blocker, still only allowed 7 pressures, which is solid. Carter's a 1-year starter with Western Carolina, despite playing there for 5 years. He played in the 36th percentile last year, so I don't think he's going to win this job. He's just not talented enough, unless, for whatever reason, Western Carolina was so bad at coaxing out elite play that Michigan State can do something vastly different. I would be shocked. From there, there's not a ton of high-end depth on the team. Mercer Luneski, I think is how you say that. I should know this. His last name similar to mine. Mercer Luneski, Peyton Stewart. Those are your top 2 recruits in the offensive line from the last class. This year's class only has 1 player in the top 1,000. It's Drew Nichols. He's at 921. So not a lot of high-end talent, but there's definitely some players that could potentially compete with an outside chance to hit the 2 deep or maybe even start. Again, as long as they're healthy, they're more talented, just another year in the program. Impossible to be worse, really. Defensive line, off the edge, they lose Chris Bogle and Anthony Jones, but they do get back their 2 best edge rushers, Jalen Thompson and Quindarius Dunnigan. Both of them played in rotation. Thompson is a former 4-star, 376 snaps last year. He's 253. Really good run defender. That's been the strength of these players. Better in run defense than pass rush, which I guess is a good foundation. Dunnigan is a lot of the same. He's not quite as dynamic as a pass rusher, but he's also bigger. He's 271. Former Middle Tennessee State transfer, played 245 snaps last year. Those 2 provide a good foundation, but they're probably going to rotate. Transfers Isaac Smith, he comes in from Texas Tech, and then Anelu Lafele from Wisconsin, David Santiago from Air Force, and Anthony Pinnes from UTSA. They all come in and join the program. Isaac Smith played 414 snaps last year with Tech, slightly below average numbers as a pass rusher, 11 QB pressures, but 2 sacks. LaFelle is a redshirt freshman, 3-star, didn't play at all with Wisconsin, should just be a depth piece. Santiago started, played 521 snaps with Air Force, had 24 pressures. That was a little above average. He's a little bit smaller at 235, so probably just like a third down player, maybe a specialist. Pinnes, he was a JUCO kid before making a pit stop at UTSA, so probably a depth piece as well. Bottom line with the edge group, they returned their teeth of this group, and then they added some transfers to hopefully allow some more rotation and teeth to the unit. Defensive tackle Daquan Dowse is gone, but they returned Alex Van Sumeren, former 4-star, played 333 snaps in rotation. He was pretty below average. Despite being 300 pounds, he wasn't the best run stuffer. They actually got better play out of former Oregon transfer, Ben Roberts, 128 snaps. As a former 4-star, he stood up in run defense. For depth, they recruited a 4-star freshman in Derek Simmons. He'll compete with 3-star senior Jalen Satchel. Satchel comes over from Old Dominion last year. Only 213 below average snaps for him. But they have a lot of depth here. This is a better position than the edge depth-wise. Grady Kelly comes in from Florida State. Didn't really get on the field much there, just 204 snaps, but plenty of starting experience with Colorado State before he made that journey over to the Seminoles. He was better against weaker competition. That should be no surprise. But overall, the defensive line lacks a bit of the high-end talent that some other teams have, but it is a deeper unit than last year. And with health, they should be better as well. Again, the common theme of the team. At linebacker, they lose their top 2 players. Jordan Turner's loss is definitely going to be felt. But a shockingly experienced unit despite that. 251 snaps back from Jordan Hall. Those are last year's snaps. He actually played 514 in 2023. But his role reduced a little bit. He has 91 career tackles, so he's at least a good place to start. Then they get 243 snaps from Wayne Matthews and another 202 from Darius Snow. Matthews originally played at Old Dominion, elite starter back with them in 2023, but took a little bit of a step back last year as he took a step up in competition. Snow, he started all the way back in 2021, but is yet to reclaim that role for one role or another. Michigan State's going to use a little bit more three linebacker looks than most teams, play some in the slot, play some tweeners. All three of those players should see significantly more snaps this year. From there, Michigan State has elite depth at linebacker. This is probably the deepest position on the team. Asaya Moa comes in from BYU, only one start to his name last year, but strong on his 142 snaps. They have a pair of 4-stars that might not even be in the two deep in Brady Pretzlaff and Samaj Bridgman, originally of Michigan. This is an excellent unit, a couple of 4-stars, a lot of depth, and a lot of players that have starting experience to their name. Defensive back, they lose their top 2 corners, highlighted by Charles Brantley. He's off to Miami, I believe. Position really hurt last year. So many players in the secondary got banged up, and one of them was Chance Rucker, who had a season-ending injury in week 2. He started in 2023. Has been largely average, but pretty good coverage numbers, 47% completion, 4 PBUs, and 1 pick's a great place to start. From there, I think your boundary corner opposite Rucker and your slot corner are probably transfers. They bring in Malcolm Bell from UConn, Josh Eaton from Texas State, Nijay Burton from Eastern Illinois, Dontavius Nash from Eastern Carolina. Bell is 6'2", big corner, started for UConn the last 3 years. He was pretty good in coverage overall. 3 PBUs, 63% completion, no touchdowns. A very good run defender. That makes sense with his size. I think he's going to have a chance to start on the boundary. Eaton is a former 4-star. He's an Oklahoma transfer who subsequently went to Texas State, was having trouble getting on the field with OU, started 2 years with Texas State, both of those years above average. Last year, 41% completion, 1 touchdown, 2 PBUs. Also had 7 PBUs in 23. From there, Burt comes from Eastern Illinois, started for the first time last year after 2 years on the bench. I think he's more of a depth piece. Nash is a former 4-star from North Carolina who started the last 2 years at East Carolina. And he's a little bit up and down, former 4-star, so the pedigree is there, but 58% completion, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 PBUs. Those are your most likely candidates to play, but they also get back Jeremiah Hughes, Andrew Brinson. Hughes is a 3-star. He played 80 snaps last year. Brinson, the sophomore 3-star, played 59. Again, I think it's likely that transfers fill the slot in the boundary corner opposite Rucker, but you never know. Safeties deep, and Michigan State often plays 3, kicking 1 into the slot. They return Nakai Martinez and Malik Spencer. Martinez, he's originally a UCF transfer, 724 snaps at Michigan State last year. Third on the team with tackles at 51, 52% completion percentage, only 112 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 1 PBU. A little undersized for safety at 5'11", 191, but those are good numbers for him. Fantastic place to start. Spencer, he's been the starter for the better part of 2 years with Michigan State. Took a little bit of a step back last year. He's had 44 tackles, but definitely a little worse coverage numbers compared to Martinez, a 70% completion. 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 PBUs. From there, for depth or competition, Justin Denson Jr. played a decent amount at the end of last year, proved average on his snaps, and then they add Tracy Revels from Bowling Green. Last year, he made 40 tackles on 451 snaps, decent in coverage overall. But again, this unit stays healthy. They're going to be better just based on that alone, not having to play young and experienced players. Special teams, this unit was pretty bad last year. They were 112th overall, or 117th. They have a new kicker now as a walk-on soccer player, Tariq Ahmet Besik. Not sure how to say that, excuse me, but reports on him are good. He only kicked 1 extra point last year. Allegedly, he has range beyond 50 yards. Apparently, every team says that when they have an inexperienced kicker, so we'll see. But it's at least an endorsement that they didn't go out and add somebody. So I think special teams, nowhere to go but up, really, for this team. Let's talk about schedule, because the bottom line, I guess, is that we're expecting improvement with health and just another year in the program. So what does Michigan State have on the docket? They have a non-con, which should be a 3-0 start. The biggest competition you're going to face is Boston College, and then you play an FCS team in Western Michigan. Those should be 2 wins. At the worst, you're looking at a 2-1 start. In conference is where things get a little tricky. This team They face Michigan and Penn State. Luckily, they dodge Ohio State and Oregon. However, their only bottom feeder games are against UCLA and Maryland's at Ford Field. There's a ton of games against the middle class. We're talking USC, Nebraska, Indiana, Minnesota, Iowa. And Michigan State trails them a little bit in talent still. So if they're going to compete with those teams, you're really betting on development year over year, which is possible. I think you're looking at another year somewhere between 4 to 6 wins, and a good goal for this team would be to reach bowl eligibility. Fortunately, they have the potential to start 3-0, and then they get some of those teams we talked about on their home turf. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, we'll see you guys again sometime this week. Let me know what you want to see next. But otherwise, good luck.